Another lovely day in the neighborhood. Let's see, try this technique again. Gloving. I really am so hostile to, gloves, sunglasses, jewelry, rings. I hate being unnatural in that sense. I just don't. Yeah, I hate this. Ugh. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's just totally useless information, really. Somebody did comment about leaves, what the leaves were for, when I get to the stream. And yeah, sometimes I don't turn the camera very well, so you can't see what I'm talking about. That's the problem with these gloves. Oh, I got a cough. Excuse me. Something in my lung. Tissue of some kind. Anyway, yeah, the leaves are for making the rocks unslippery that I have to walk across to get across the stream. Put the leaves on the ice, and it makes the ice, it puts a little grit on it, and it just makes it a little easier to walk on. But anyway, so I guess we're back to this value relativism stuff still, perpetually. And I guess it's you're always going to end up stuck back at it. Because as soon as you start winning an argument about some sort of ethical equation, they're going to pull this card out and just say, well, it doesn't matter because it's not real, it's not proven. You can't, blah, blah, blah. And so you're just, fuck. All this work for nothing. Because they're always going to nuke. They're always going to resort to the nuclear option. So when you beat them in the conventional war, they'll just pull out the bomb of value relativism and conversation over. So, there needs to be this description of the ethical landscape. I don't think Sam Harris should have used the word moral. That is something they can't argue with. You have to make it so. You have to prove it. Somehow I have to prove the existence of value. And again, I'll argue, all I can do is provide a logical proof, one that is so airtight as a statement that you can't make a rational counter-argument. There's no conceivable, imaginable, anything you could possibly create that would be coherent to the facts that we do know of the material universe, where you could explain how the statement is incorrect. And that's the only standard I can go to, is beyond reasonable contention. So that's the only, if you can't agree on, at least that's the trial standard. Beyond reasonable contention. Then we can get somewhere. But obviously I can't create a proof like, here's the word of God, written by God, signed by God, and, it's a perfectly qualified signature. I can't do that. I can't provide you material proof. I can only provide you with an intelligent proof. And that would be against, like I said, this standard, that's a reasonable standard of reasonable contention, reasonable dispute, reasonable counter-argument has to be provided. And if you can't provide one, you have to kind of concede the truth, or resort to the missing variable or something, and just to say, resort to the God bomb. But that's about all you got left. Once you're outside the realm of reasonable, then you have to resort to an unreasonable excuse, and I'd call God an unreasonable defense. Mystical forces is an unreasonable added variable. Anyway, so I've been punching at this a bit, and haven't gotten too far yet, but there are a few key ingredients, a few key points to make that are on this road to a proof. And the points would be that no matter what value would be, even if you conceded that value did exist as a reality, it would be materially invisible. You'd have to concede that the fact that the universe has created a game, it's created functioning pieces that interact, and that there are characteristics, there are properties of those pieces. They have properties, functions that can be labeled and described, and that some of those functions have a characteristic, a component that is not materially manifest, obviously, in the sense that maybe if we had enough information, we could see the material manifestation of consciousness, for example, but it's very hard to, from our limited perspective, to model the internal game. So there's the game, and then there's the big game, and then there's the game, and the game, and the game. There's all layers of game here, and we don't have enough information about the game that creates consciousness, but we can establish that it exists as a premise, that it is a phenomenon, and that it has these characteristics, properties that are manifest in these organisms that have this function of consciousness. And so the first point would be is that value is a description of function. Like many other descriptions of function, it's not material in its outward appearance. It doesn't have any appearance. See, this is my problem. See, that's like a big trouble there. In terms of if I step on that, I might fall in the water. So maybe we'll go look for some ice that's hard enough to jetty across. But yeah, who wants to fall into the water? I don't really want to do that. Yeah, so what you want to do is fall into it just a little bit if you have to fall into it. So there might be enough ice. Like over here, it looks like there's almost a path. It's probably going to break, but if it breaks, it's thin enough water, shallow enough water, where it may not be catastrophic to my function. Some other animal is doing the same thing here, walking the shore saying, where, oh where can I cross this shithole? This doesn't look too good either, though. I don't want to waste too much time. Guess I'll have to go back and smash the ice off. And so anyway, back to the video. All right, so let's establish that the first premise is this value will be invisible. Whether it exists or it doesn't exist, just concede the point that if it did exist and you people were wrong, that it would be invisible. It's not going to be a material substance. Yeah, I have to go back. All right, so the second, I think, important fact is this idea that we're personally experiencing something that seems to be totally the constituent of value. That there isn't much that we can observe in the universe that would indicate value weight beyond the existence of sentient welfare. We could say that a bacteria squiggling about but not feeling anything, it doesn't have any horrors of death, or it doesn't have any desire or want or wish or unfulfilled or unsatisfiedness or deprivation. It's just a machine. And we could say there's a value in its struggle for existence, but that would be based on nothing else but just saying somehow its survival means something to it, but it means nothing to it. It has no sentience, it has no consciousness, therefore it can't possibly mean something to it. So that's sort of making stuff up, right? That's That works fairly well. At least it gives me a corner. Ooh, yeah, that's a good corner. If I can get enough of my boot on it. Probably should get a bigger rock. Not great, but good enough to get me to the next section, I think. See, it's just really slippery. Like this piece here is really slippery. That's this little part here. See, now I have some hope of surviving this walk. Yeah, this one's good and flat. This doesn't scare me too much. And it's got crud on it. Alright, anyway, back to where we were. So, obviously there's a value in my welfare. Me not falling in the water has meaning, not because there's some, like, oh, it's some sort of competition, Gary against the slippery ice, and, you know, all that kind of crap, but because we know I would have an unpleasant sensual experience if I were to slip. Let's say I could even die, you know, I could slip, fall backwards, bash my head against one of these cement blocks and roll into the water and drown, and which wouldn't be so bad, really. But obviously it would be bad for whatever mission I have in life and all that kind of crap. We don't know whether that has any value. So that's what makes humans complicated, is they do play two roles. They play the role of a feeling thing and the role of a producer of conditions. You know, conditions that are, you know, conducive to the welfare of others, and conditions that are, you know, that can be great to their great benefit, and conditions that can be taking, you know, raping and pillaging and all that. This should really, it's pretty sandy, but it's still slippery. Let me try doing it with this foot. Yeah, you know, it's not a great rock. See, it's crooked. I mean, obviously that gravity thing takes over, and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. Alright, sorry, that was probably quite annoying from your side, but life has these annoying bits in it, and that's sort of the whole point, is that we're able to be annoyed, to have repulsive and obnoxious things happen to us because of our consciousness, and that's the core of value, the core. Now other people will talk about values that are developed out of that core, where we have common values, quote unquote. Let's not call them values. Let's say we have common manifestations of our psychology that give us pleasure and pain based on circumstances. All right, like I don't know, getting caught by your sister masturbating. Yeah, ooh, humiliating. You know, there's lots of these stoic kind of honor code things where you know, you do something and you fail in some kind of way, or you demonstrate a bit of bad character, you know, winking at another man's wife or something, and you know, we'll call those things important because we psychologically react to them, and we call some of those commonly human. You know, like, because many people have those stoic values, like pride in country, or pride in family, you know, an nepotistic attitude. We'll call them real values when those are manifestations of psychology, and the real value is the fact that something makes us sad or makes us feel bad about ourselves or makes us sense something negative. So the core is really what drives all of those. So there's the core value is in the sensations of pain and pleasure, and then everything above that is negotiable in terms of its character, its meaning, its substance. So the value of chocolate ice cream over vanilla ice cream is clearly subjective psychology and physiology dictating that. Obviously for simian primates, we could argue, that a banana split tastes better than a dog shit split. And all the humans would basically agree, except for a tiny minority who would like some, dog shit with ice cream on it. So we can make generalities, but again, those are all subjective, subject to the conditioning of the machine at a more rudimentary level that has nothing to do with a conversation about this game. So that's a debate about these little game inside, and when you're talking about absolute value or universal value, it's in the context of the biggest, broadest game, and in that game, I think only the core value can be established as the value that matters, and that any modification you make to how people derive comfort is really subjective crap. In the end, the happy imbecile is a more functional human if they're not required to produce anything. If you're no longer required to be a good janitor or a good maintainer of the people around you's welfare, happy retard or happy imbecile would be the way to go, because you have no serviceable job, and therefore it's just about your internal comfort. And the more forgetful you are of your sadnesses, and the more in the moment you are in terms of enjoying the pleasures, the less scrutiny you apply to your enjoyment. Because we obviously see with the more intelligent, sophisticated psychology, we end up diminishing the good times by placing context on those of the bad times, and we sometimes make the bad times even worse, by being able to make these comparisons between the good times and the bad times. So the fact that we make extensive comparison often diminishes the quality of our experience, where organisms like, for example, a chimpanzee sort of lives more in the moment, and his passions are unrestrained, unconfined. There's no leash of context to any great degree, limiting how much he can wallow in his anger or frustration, or how much he can wallow in the just to totally absorb the moments of passion and desire. So I'm getting as soon as you start talking about value, you start drifting from that core. So I guess what I'm going to try to establish in these conversations, or what I have tried, is to establish the existence of the core. And so I know we can say basic things, that this clump of snow, is different than this clump of gray matter, the crap inside my brain. That this isn't having a sentient experience, because a sentient experience is dependent on neurology. And we can understand that this has no meaning beyond the fact that it's now interacting with a sentient being. You also, it's interacting with you through this video. And now it would have some value as an instructional tool. And instruction is valuable because it can help you gain more satisfaction in life. Knowing how to play a game can make you more successful at the game. And yeah, unfortunately, I mean, that's sort of what we're getting to here. So we're really trying to talk about what's the game that we're playing. And the game we're playing is not whatever pops into my head, I do, I feel good, I feel bad, I. We know that, like snowflakes, there's a lot of human, there's a lot of I brain, me brains. And all the brains have a welfare, and the interconnection between them is as obvious as the interconnection between these snowflakes. The tentacles, the strings, attachments between our lives are undeniably present. So this I crap really doesn't work, and what you're stuck with again is the core of feeling, being, and what's the net effect of the interaction between the feeling beings. So clearly things like slavery can be intellectually, rationally, logically understood to be ineffective because you're creating so much negative sensation in the individual called the slaves, like if you just made them an individual, and versus the individual called the owners, their comfort is negated by the fact that there's this horrible suffering that comes with them, that is their Siamese twin that's attached to their comfort, and that they can't have the comfort without the exploitation, and they can't win though with this arrangement where they undo the value of their comfort by creating this horrible amount of discomfort. So I'm getting into value statements, and that's not what I really want to do. But I guess I would get agreement on the fact that if the value relatives would concede that if there is real value in the end, that it would be invisible, and only intelligence would recognize it, and that it would recognize it. It wouldn't invent it, it would deduce it. It would see it in play in the pieces. It would see how they move, how they interact, and it would recognize the phenomenon of it, especially if it had the huge insight of being provided with sentience itself. I mean, unlike some thinking machine that would have to deduce this without having sentience to rely on, we have this huge cheat of being given an example of it in our own heads. We are fed the scenario right in our brains. So, sorry, these driveway sealer guys, they don't fill these cracks. I don't know why he keeps paying these assholes do it the wrong way. But whatever. Whole nother subject. So next time. It's working, whatnot. Snow. They're putting a big obscene addition on that house. It's gonna be